Desmond Tutu, embodying peacemaking in post-apartheid South Africa. Faith's capacity to transform extends beyond intellectual pursuits into the realm of national healing. When Archbishop Desmond Tutu confronted the seemingly insurmountable challenge of reconciliation in post-apartheid South Africa, he proposed something that many considered naive or even dangerous: applying Jesus' radical teachings on forgiveness to a nation traumatized by generations of institutionalized racism. The air in South Africa during the early 1990s was thick with tension and uncertainty. "We could taste the fear," recalled one resident of Soweto. White families worried about retribution. Black families carried generations of wounds. We all wondered, how do we live together now? The formal dismantling of apartheid had ended the legal framework of racial segregation, but the deeper wounds remained unaddressed. How could a society move forward when perpetrators of horrific human rights abuses lived alongside their victims? Conventional retributive justice, punishment proportional to the crime, would have likely perpetuated cycles of violence in a nation already fractured along racial lines. In this precarious moment, Archbishop Desmond Tutu emerged as the moral architect of an unprecedented experiment in national healing. As chairman of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission (TRC), Tutu established a framework that prioritized truth-telling, acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and the possibility of forgiveness. This approach was profoundly theological, rooted explicitly in Tutu's understanding of Jesus' teachings on reconciliation. The Theological Foundation of the TRC manifested in Tutu's public statements and writings. He framed the Commission's work within Christian principles, drawing particularly from the Beatitudes. Commission proceedings often began with prayer, and Tutu regularly cited Jesus' teachings on mercy and peacemaking as spiritual justification for the process. For Tutu, the TRC created a sacred space where forgiveness could manifest. Central to Tutu's framework was the African concept of Ubuntu, which he integrated with Christian principles. Ubuntu emphasizes the interconnectedness of humanity, articulated by Tutu as "a person is a person through other persons." This philosophical concept aligned with Jesus' emphasis on community and restored relationships. "My humanity is caught up, is inextricably bound up, in yours," Tutu explained. "We belong in a bundle of life." This integration provided the foundation for the TRC's approach to restorative justice. Rather than viewing justice as punishment, Tutu's framework defined justice as relationship restoration. This perspective allowed the Commission to prioritize truth-telling as a step toward healing. Perpetrators who fully disclosed their crimes could be granted amnesty, but only after confronting their victims and acknowledging the harm caused. Ubuntu manifested powerfully in the case of Namand Kalada, whose husband was one of the Cradock 4 activists murdered by white police officers. During their confession, she wept uncontrollably. Later, after hearing their full disclosure, she expressed forgiveness toward the perpetrators. This extraordinary act demonstrated the transformative potential of Tutu's approach. Another notable case involved former police officer Jeffrey Benzian, who demonstrated before the Commission the wet bag torture technique he had used. He faced his former victims and acknowledged his actions. The confrontation itself, the truth acknowledged, represented a crucial step toward healing that would have been impossible in a purely retributive system. Tutu's application of Jesus' teachings extended beyond frameworks into his personal approach. He modeled the forgiveness he advocated. When criticized, Tutu referenced the Sermon on the Mount, particularly Jesus' teaching on forgiveness and loving one's enemies. For Tutu, these were practical guidelines for reconstructing a broken society. The theological basis became most evident in Tutu's references to the Beatitudes. "Blessed are the peacemakers," and "Blessed are the merciful," became foundational texts for the Commission's work. In his view, creating peace required the active restoration of relationships through truth-telling, justice, and forgiveness. This approach represented a contextual application of Jesus' teachings to address the specific wounds of a post-apartheid society. The TRC has inspired similar approaches to reconciliation in countries like Rwanda, Sierra Leone, and Colombia. While scholarly assessments remain mixed, its contribution to preventing widespread violence following apartheid is widely acknowledged. Like earlier examples of faith transforming intellect and ethics, Tutu demonstrated how ancient teachings could inform contemporary approaches to conflict resolution on a national scale. What makes Tutu's application particularly significant is its demonstration that principles of forgiveness can function not merely individually but as foundations for national policy. By integrating theological concepts into a political framework, Tutu showed how they could be operationalized to address profound societal wounds. The South African experiment suggests that theological frameworks, thoughtfully applied and contextualized, may provide unique resources for reconciliation where conventional political approaches prove insufficient.